Hello everybody, welcome back to Hidden Harvest with Liz. My name is Liz, and today we are going to be talking about setting up for your baby chicks. Brand new baby chicks are going to be bringing them home. What all do you need in order to start, hold on, pretty sure that's kind of loud. In order to start out your baby chicks. First off, you're going to need your chicks, wherever you plan on getting them from. People have ordered them online, and they usually ship, they'll be starting shipments now, and there's a lot of places that have already done all of their orders that they're going to do for a year. So you'll probably, at this point, possibly even have to go to a big box store in order to get them. I'm getting mine from Tractor Supply. So check your local Tractor Supply or local farm to see whether or not they're doing chickens. Next, I would definitely, well, first, on the chicken situation, you should probably research what kind of chickens are good for what. Because my first year that I got my chickens, the first bit of information I have gotten about chickens is I went to go get my chickens from my local Tractor Supply, and the lady that was up there offered to give me all of those chickens for $1 a piece. I wound up getting like 20 chicks. And I didn't realize it, but those chickens were actually meat birds. They were not layers. Now, there was a situation that occurred with my chicks, and I'll get into that when we start talking about the brooder, but I had to get a second batch of chickens, and I found out that I was given the wrong birds the first time. So make sure you know what each chicken is for, whether or not they're a layer. Some of them are good layers, some of them are medium layers, some are more heritage breeds, which are more like a survivalist bird. Like the bird is going to be able to take care of itself. It'll raise its own chickens. It'll raise its own chicks. It'll lay them, brood for them, meaning they'll lay on them and actually hatch them out themselves. And they tend to be slider birds because they haven't mixed with other birds to force them to lay more or to gain more meat or things like that. That's usually what the heritage breeds are. So I would definitely recommend doing research on which types of chickens you want in your flock. Second, you're going to need a place in which to put your chickens. Right here, I have got my brooder that we made out of an old chicken hutch, and we had to redo the wiring on the front of it. Now, the wiring you're going to need is hardware cloth, and make sure it's fastened very, very well all the way around, and that there's a tough heavy lid to go over the top of it. There's a lot of people who brood their young chicks inside and some people who do that outside. Make sure the entire area is secure if it's ever going to be open. Do not leave the area even for 10 minutes. I found this out last year. Like I said, I was going to talk about this. Last year, I had to go to a funeral, and I left the door open for my baby chicks to get some fresh air and some sunlight. And I thought it was going to be a rather quick day. It was not a quick day. We wound up being gone for hours. And a local dog got my chicks. Even though I had barricaded part of the door, here, I'll actually show the door. I had barricaded this part of the door right across here. That dog was strong enough to push down my barricade and come inside anyway. And because I hadn't refinished the outside of this, there was just chicken wire, and it was broken in a couple of places. I had actually gone to buy the chicken wire, but had not installed it yet. It was supposed to be done that evening whenever I got back. Did not get to that. It was an upsetting situation. It was a learning lesson about how vulnerable they are. It was also a learning lesson about making sure I had the right kind of chickens, because when we went to go back and get them, found out there was the wrong kind. If you're going to do a brooder like this or any other type of brooder, especially if it's going to be outside, then it is hardware cloth that you are using on the outside, not chicken wire. Chicken wire is exceptionally flimsy, and it's a very bad name for it. Chicken wire is typically used on the upper levels of a chicken coop area, where the only thing it's trying to really protect from is hawks and stuff. Chicken wire will not stop a dog. It will not stop raccoons, because raccoons can actually reach through and grab a chicken, things like that. So hardware cloth is basically the thing that you need to go with. And then on top of that, you're going to need a chicken coop heater or brooder. This is the one that I have gotten from my local Tractor Supply. It's the one I'm going to be using for this year. You can find these guys on the internet as well. I would definitely recommend getting one that has the adjustable legs, as in you can raise or lower depending on the age of your chickens. There is also the chance of using a heat lamp for your chickens. I have opted to not use a heat lamp for my chickens because I don't have an open top. Right now it's open. It's actually got a very heavy lid. I'm not going to have an open top on mine, and a heat lamp actually needs to stay a certain amount of distance away from the chicks and in one area so that the chickens can move away whenever they get too hot and get close to it whenever they get cold. So that's one thing with these, is they can easily get out from underneath it and move away from the heat source if they get too hot. One of the biggest problems with baby chicks is them getting too hot as opposed to too cold. Baby chicks can live between, I want to say it's as long as they are above freezing and they have a heat source, they're fine. If it gets below freezing with this heat source, you might want to find additional ways of heating the area for them, but this right here plus them together should always be okay. If you are going to do a heat lamp, you have to have it so far up off the ground. You need to make sure it's stabilized and everything, and that there's a way for them to escape the warmth of it in case they get too hot. The only reason I have chosen not to, well, there's two reasons I've chosen not to do heat lamps. First off, if anything knocks down the heat lamp, there's a chance for a fire. Secondly, is there's been a lot of studies saying, well, not studies, but more like people acknowledging that it's something that happens a lot, and that is that when baby chicks have got poop on them, they're very fluffy when they're little. They're very fluffy. So if the chickens poop and it doesn't, come off like it's supposed to, there is more likely that a lamp will dry the poop on them and you wind up with poopy butt. And I had one chick one time get poopy butt, and it wasn't like really, really bad, because I kept on top of making sure every time I came out here to handle them, I checked all of them to make sure everything was okay. So I only had to deal with washing one of them to make sure that everything was okie dokie. But this, I think, is like a good reason why I didn't have to worry about it very often. So heat lamp or a brooder, a heat thing here. And you can do it, let's see, where does it show? You can lay it flat like this whenever they're little bitty chicks. You can lay them standing straight up either way. And that is for whenever they get a bit bigger, because they're going to want to move away from the warmth and then go back to the warmth whenever they need it. And when they're small, they're going to want to hide underneath something, which is the reason why to have it flat, is so they can go underneath there and feel safe. Okay, now we covered the way of keeping them warm, the container that they're in. You will also need some form of bedding. Usually during the first week, they really don't recommend you put any type of wood chips or anything underneath them, just like napkins, cardboard, that kind of thing is definitely the way to go. Me personally, I am going to do a two-step method. I have got some thicker bits of cardboard here that I'm going to line the bottom with, because the hardware cloth is actually on the bottom as well. Which does make cleanup a little bit more of a challenge in certain areas, but does make cleanup a little bit easier in certain areas. But this will keep them to where we don't have to worry about them not having enough stability on the hardware cloth. And then I'm going to put this with this side down and put this side up. But basically, this is what they're going to be walking around on for the first couple of days. Just to make sure that their feet are completely formed before I start putting any sort of wood chips or anything else like that. And then after they get a little bit bigger, I will move into something like this. It's a pretty fine wood chip. And then after they get a lot older, when they're pullets, basically teenagers, I'll move into something like this. But even now, I use this inside their chicken coop and this inside their chicken run. Up next, you're going to need something to water your chickens with. I prefer this guy right here. But basically, you turn this thing over. Turn it over, fill it up. Then you screw this back on, flip it back over, and there's a little hole, and it'll fill up this little ring right here. Whenever you first bring home your chicks, what you do is you take your chicks, you dunk their beak inside of it, and then just set them down and let them go to where their brooder is to get warm. But that's just basically showing them where the water is. And I would definitely recommend making sure that you check this. Only give them a little bit at a time, because you're going to need to swap this out a lot. Because they will poop in here. They will fall in it. So be careful not to get a waterer that's too deep. If you get one that's too deep, there's a chance they could actually fall inside the water and not be able to get out and drown. Or they could fall in, get wet, and then freeze. So be careful about the size of the waterer that you get. If you have to get something that's quite a bit bigger, see if you can put something inside of it to make it not quite so deep, like stones or something like that. Typically, whenever I get one of these, the first day that I have them, or the first couple of weeks that I have them actually, the last time I took some marbles and some stones and I put it here, so even if somehow or another one of them fell into it, they wouldn't get so far into it that they wouldn't be able to either get out or get dry. the next thing that you're going to need is a feeder. I've got this one from whenever they're really tiny. You just fill this thing up. They will go through, let's see, I had 10 chickens to start with. I have 7 now. I had 2 roosters in the mix that I found homes for. But I had to fill this up the first couple of days only once. After that, I had to start filling this thing up twice a day. After they got to the point where they were comfortable and they were starting to test their wings, as it were, I had to upgrade from this one to this one because they were constantly knocking this one over and putting their food all over the floor and pooping on it and everything else like that. And they will eat it. It's not good for them to eat it. And that is what I keep telling them. Don't eat that. Don't do that. Have standards. They don't listen to me. Anyway, so I moved over to this one because it was a lot harder for them to knock this one over. And if they sat on top of it, which it's actually kind of hard for them to sit on top of this one, whereas they could definitely sit on top of that one. This is a little bit taller, and my brooder is a bit too tall for them to get on top of that. Let me just go ahead and show you the inside of my brooder right quick. Okay, like I said, hardware cloth, and this is actually doubled up hardware cloth, and hardware cloth along the bottom, along all of the sides, and a nice heavy lid. So unless I come out here and open this, nothing else is going to be able to get in here. Okay, so next I'm going to go ahead and prep this area for my chickens and get this stuff situated. I think I'm going to leave this sitting here. Actually, no, I'm going to go ahead and tape this up. If I had 2 so I could put them on both sides, that'd be different, but I don't want to make it uneven. I will say that chicks probably need the bedding swapped about every other week as long as you're layering it up. I come out here every single day and sprinkle new bedding over the top of where they have pooped at. And then after a week, 2 weeks, depending on how many chickens you have in here, it's time to clean all of it out. So you take all the chicks out, put them into a different container, clean the whole thing out, put down fresh bedding, also swapping out the cardboard underneath it in my case, and then putting everything back in here. Okay, I'm gonna put these guys down, because these are going to be a whole lot more solid. My chicken brooder is going to go here, their food here, their water here. While they're smaller, they will probably maintain area here. When they get a bit older, their pullets, they'll come over to this side. In that case, I'll worry about this area. Just like that, after I add the food and the water here. There we go. And I think I will go ahead and add in some bedding. I will just make it very light. Okay. Then we're going to set this brooder in here. And once they get a little bit older, what I can do is elevate one side. Okay, so we've got our feeder, our waterer, not the waterer. Okay, we've got the feeder, the waterer, and then we've got our brooder right here, and I've got this side elevated and that side lower, so if they get hot, they can move forward. If they get cold, they can move further back, and either way, they'll be warm. All right, and that's basically how you put together a brooder for your baby chicks. As they get a little bit older, we'll be doing vlogs. We will be doing vlogs on how far they've gotten, what they're doing at this particular phase, and what you should or should not be worried about. And I will see you guys in those episodes as we raise an entirely brand new batch of chicks. And while we're doing those vlogs, I will also let you know all of the things that I've learned in this first year of keeping chickens. I will see you next time. You have a wonderful day, wonderful night, and you stay shiny.